Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to possibly my last 4K video. This is showing my entire 4K collection up to this point. Obviously I've pre-ordered Touch of Evil from Eureka on 4K, but I don't see myself getting that many more 4Ks. I think I have done enough, apart from obviously Second Sight if they release 4Ks of films, and there's like films that come along that I would like a 4K of, but apart from that, I don't think I'll be particularly upgrading anything I have already in the collection from Blu-ray to 4K. Obviously that might be a complete lie, but in general I'm not really looking to upgrade. Some 4Ks are absolutely stunning, some 4Ks are kind of marginally better than the Blu-ray, and other 4Ks it's not really that much difference apart from perhaps the sound. So I'm just going to go through. It's funny because you think you don't have that many 4Ks, but I have bought some while I've been off air, as they call it in the business. So I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to spend too much time on each release, but we might as well get started because there's actually quite a few. So we'll start with the Kino Lorber 4K of 12 Angry Men, which I believe wasn't really that much of an upgrade over the Blu-ray, if I'm being honest, but again, people's 4K equipment can vary. Sidney Lumet's amazing debut, obviously Imprint have just announced, I think, a December or November box set for Sidney Lumet, which I have accidentally ordered, as I only have one of the films on Blu-ray already, so that's why I've ordered it. The 4K of Dredd, which I felt I just had to kind of get, and this does look spectacular. Granted, the Blu-ray looked pretty spectacular as well, but the 4K is excellent. I blame Nazarene Prod for this. This is the Monsterverse 4 film collection steelbook in 4K. Now, as I say, I blame Nazarene Prod. I did get this fairly cheaply compared to what it's generally going for. So there's Godzilla in 2014, which I think's kind of underrated in some way. It's a nice little film. And then we have my favourite in the box set, Kong Skull Island, which is complete nonsense, but it's daft fun, done very well, I think. John C. Reilly should have got an Oscar for his performance. Then Godzilla King of Monsters, which for me is kind of the weakest of the bunch, because there's too much humankind for that film for my liking, because we don't watch these films for the humans. And Godzilla vs Kong, again, big daft fun, but rather enjoyable. Again, perhaps too many people in the film, but it is quite a nice solid set, and it does have very nice artwork. But again, that's Nazarene Prod's fault. The Arrow 4K of Tremors. This is the steelbook. Again, kind of had to have it, and it looks quite fantastic. The first 4K that I ever bought before I even had a 4K player, Flash Gordon, the greatest documentary ever made. And the first of the Second Sight 4Ks that I'm going to show off, the Drive 4K, which is slightly excessive for a film that's very good, but I don't really see it as being like the masterpiece that some people think it is. And again, another massive one from Second Sight, The Picnic at Hanging Rock, 4K with the book. It's an absolute beast. If you don't like the film, you can use it as a doorstop. Silent Running on 4K from Arrow, which is the exact same packaging as the standard Blu-ray from Arrow. Bergman's knockabout comedy, The Seventh Seal, which does look fairly spectacular, from BFI. And one of the more recent ones that's actually been announced for the UK, but of course I got the US version, After Hours, which retrospectively now is probably in Scorsese's top 5 films as far as I'm concerned. It's great seeing it on 4K. A Pixar 4K for Soul. Bizarrely, I did get this on eBay for I think £6. So sometimes you do get sellers on eBay that perhaps need to do a little bit of research. And then the Stanley Kubrick, which I've shown off before, which I got just about half price from what it sells at, just because the cardboard box has got a rip in it. But this is Spartacus 2001, Clockwork Orange is Shining in Full Metal Jacket on 4K. I'm not going to say no to that. Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove. The Four Musketeers, Richard Lester. And strangely enough, The Three Musketeers from Richard Lester. A nice Shout Factory Steelbook 4K of Kubo and the Two Strings, which is so underrated, but it's a lovely little film. Wonderful animation, and the 4K does look rather fantastic. I had to get Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and this is the Steelbook. And I will continue to get as many Cronenberg 4Ks as they produce. So Videodrome from Arrow, that's a no-brainer. Another Second Sight 4K, The Guest, which is a fun little film, not rocket science, but then the only thing that is rocket science is actually rocket science. Gattaca on 4K, which looks wonderful. Another nice little performance by Alan Arkin. Another Kino Lorber, In the Heat of the Night, which I've talked about before, because you do get the 2 sequels, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs and The Organisation. I didn't even realise there was a second sequel. You get them in Blu-ray as part of this package, so it's worth picking up if you want the whole trilogy. Again, another Cronenberg 4K, keep doing them please. This is the Kino Lorber of Eastern Promises. I always prefer this over History of Violence, but again, it's a matter of taste. Heat in 4K, kind of had to get Heat in 4K. This is the other Shout Factory 4K Steelbook. This is Coraline, which is just a beautiful film, and it's a beautiful release by Shout Factory. Louis Buñuel 4K, who ever thought would say that? The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie from Studio Canal. Had to get this one in 4K as well, Mad Max Fury Road. Yes, I did pick up Christine on 4K. Not one of my favourite John Carpenter's, but blimey, it looks amazing. I'm trying to get John Carpenter's on 4K just because of that aspect ratio. They Live on 4K, and this is Shout Factory or Scream Factory, whichever you prefer. I think one of these masterpieces that doesn't really get talked about enough, as my massive pile is about to fall over. I featured this in Turkey Love, Sword and the Sorcerer on 4K, if you can believe it. Yes, the Sword and the Sorcerer on 4K. What a world. We can't live together or have harmony and peace, but we can have the Sword and Sorcerer on 4K. for a few dollars more on 4K from Kino Lorber, which looks really good. Still to get Fistful of Dollars. Taking a Pelham 123, which I didn't think would look that impressive on 4K, but as I absolutely adore the film, I kind of had to get it, and it does look really good. It is actually an improvement over the Blu-ray. Another Cronenberg one, so it's a no-brainer. It's Crash on 4K. Jean Renoir's La Règle de Jeu on 4K. This is a French release. Pan's Labyrinth on 4K. Eureka's Cabinet of Dr. Caligari on 4K with this lovely artwork. Big hard box. Carpenter's The Thing on 4K. Not surprisingly I had to get that in 4K, and it looks really good. Carpenter's The Thing on 4K. This is another steelbook. And Carpenter's The Thing on 4K. This is The Titan of Cult 4K with this nice artwork on it. Because as regular viewers of the channel will understand that 1, I'm an idiot, and 2, I have a thing about The Thing. I think there might actually be another edition of The Thing in 4K. That would only be 4 editions of The Thing on 4K. Well, it's 4K, so I'd have to get 4. Another Second Sight. This is The Witch on 4K. Just beautiful artwork on the front. Then this is another essential for me, obviously. The Three Colours trilogy on 4K. Absolutely beautiful. A recent one, Gregory's Girl on 4K, which pretty much is almost a biography of my school life. Reservoir Dogs 4K steelbook from Lionsgate with the floating ear, which I do love. Another Cronenberg, it's Arrow's Naked Lunch on 4K. Exterminate All Rational Thought. Another Second Sight. I mean, this was announced and everybody got excited and it took a while, but it was worth waiting for. Martin on 4K again. I'm sure George Romero would never have thought that Martin would end up getting a beautiful 4K release. You could make the argument this is Romero's best film. Groundhog Day on 4K. Often felt even the Blu-ray had a kind of gloss or a sheen over it, so the 4K is an improvement for me. Labyrinth in 4K, of course. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 4K. It is my favourite Indiana Jones film. And to get Short Round in 4K is quite an achievement. Again, one that I had to get, Brotherhood of the Wolf. I've got the Scream Factory on Blu-ray, but this is the 4K complete hokum, but it's so enjoyable. And I did a video on the Walter Hill box set, and one of the discs is the 4K of The Driver, which I'm sure Nicholas Winding Refn perhaps has heard of. The 4K of The Ladykillers, not my favourite Ealing comedy, but it does look rather good on 4K. Again, another 4K that I bought probably around about the same time as Flash Gordon, even though I never didn't actually have a 4K player. Jodorowsky's Santa Sangre, which absolutely pops on 4K, as you'd expect. Blade Runner 2049, the surprisingly good sequel. Kubrick's Killer's Kiss on 4K by Kino Lorber. Again, if they're going to release Kubrick on 4K, I'm going to buy Kubrick in 4K. One of the the daftest ones, I suppose. The Children of the Corn trilogy, which just has the first film on 4K from Arrow, because again, what we really need in our life is the 4K of Children of the Corn. The Good, the Bad and the Ugly on 4K, which looks absolutely wonderful. Of course, I have realised that I think I've forgotten The Grudge, the Ju-On box set from Arrow, which is on 4K, a couple of the films, so, or maybe the first film. So already I've forgotten one. Paths of Glory, again, this is Kino Lorber, so if it's Kubrick on 4K, I'm going to buy Kubrick on 4K. Jaws on 4K, I think, again, along with Santa Sanguine, Flash Gordon, I bought this lenticular, just the bottom jaw, before I actually had a 4K player. King of New York on 4K, which does actually look better, because it's one of those films that's quite dark, but it does actually look better. Another no-brainer, The Red Shoes on 4K, I mean, holy moly. Another one that's a stunner, Orlando, with Sally Potter, with Tilda Swinton, just an absolutely stunning 4K. I had to get The Natural in 4K, and again, it gets rid of that kind of sheen that's on the Blu-ray. Mulholland Drive, kind of had to get that as well. Again, Lynch on 4K. I'm going to buy Lynch on 4K. Blade Runner, The Titans of Cult, 4K steelbook for the Ridley Scott film. And that's the artwork on the front of that. Fairly plainish, really. But it is rather nice to see that on 4K. Still probably Ridley Scott's best film. Another no-brainer, Double Life of Veronique on 4K. Another Shizlovsky masterwork. We're back to Cronenberg, Second Sight's fairly recent Crimes of the Future, which does have lots of lovely extras and a really thick book with lots of essays about Cronenberg and Cronenberg's body of work. I mean, it's a really thick, beautiful book, so I would actually highly recommend picking the special edition up, because it is really full of wonderful writing. So we've got Dead Ringers, the enduring creative partnership of David Cronenberg and Viggo Mortensen. We have Cronenberg's Cosmopolis, location in the science fiction films of David Cronenberg. We have Hunger Artists, a Kafka Cronenberg digest. We have Long Live the New Flesh, transforming and transcending bodies in the cinema of David Cronenberg. We have lovely pictures. We have Cronenberg and the Value of Art and the Crimes of the Future. We have Secreting Societies and Mutating Nations. We have Crimes of the Future, from abandoned script to a topical return to form for David Cronenberg. And we have Crumbling Buildings and Perverse Furniture, an appreciation of Crimes of the Future. So there's a lot of writing and therefore reading in that booklet. It's not just one of those thin little books with lots of pictures and not a lot of writing in it. So I would highly recommend the special edition of Crimes of the Future. Again, I am not paid by Second Sight, but if you're into Cronenberg, the special edition is the one to get, just for that writing. Back to Criterion, again, so happy for the films of Carl Franklin to get a bit of respect, because again, for me, he created two of the best American films in the 90s that were then kind of forgotten about. Devil in a Blue Dress, not Devil in a Drew Breast. Probably Denzel Washington's best film. And then, Crimes of the Future by Cronenberg. I think this is an Italian 4K that I got before the Second Sight one, because you kind of have to. The other Carol Franklin Masterwork, which is getting a UK 4K release from Criterion. This is just an absolute masterwork. And there is a new conversation with Franklin and Billy Bob Thornton. This was released by Imprint in one of their neo-noir box sets, which I did a video on for Neglected Gems. But that interview, that kind of chat with Billy Bob Thornton and Carol Franklin is absolutely wonderful, and I would highly recommend picking up the Criterion, apart from seeing one of the best American films of the 90s, but actually for that conversation as well. Kind of had to get that as well. Citizen Kane, which looks rather lovely. Almost Famous, one of my favourite films of the 2000s. Had to get Alien in 4K. Obviously James Cameron's sitting on the abyss in Aliens, and we'll probably never see 4Ks of them, even though he keeps promising them, because he's far too busy with Avatar sequels. Up on 4K, and Wall-E on 4K. This was a good kind of test. So I would say for Pixar, there's absolutely no point in upgrading to 4K from Blu-ray, because the Blu-rays look stunning and the 4Ks don't really look that much better. I mean, again, it could be my old eyes, but that was a good test to see. Not really bothered about upgrading Pixar. Then this is my Japanese 4K of Seven Samurai without English subtitles, which does look better than the Blu-ray, but if you're familiar with the film subtitles, you know what's going on anyway. There are more Japanese 4Ks, but of course I won't be buying any of them. The Dark Crystal, which I got in the package or on the deal with Labyrinth. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I think looks a little bit better than the Blu-ray. I did recently see the sequel, or the part 2 of the trilogy. Way too long. Still enjoyable, but obviously doesn't have the freshness or the surprising nature of this one. And the Second Sight of George C. Scott and the Changeling. Obviously not a huge fan of George C. Scott, even though I love quite a lot of his films that I have in the collection. I also have the regular Blu-ray special edition of the Changeling, which is pretty much identical, apart from this one's in 4K. Different cover, so you can differentiate from them in your collection. Another doorstop, Second Sight's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, very much like Martin, you don't want this looking pristine or anything, because it should be dirty and grimy and horrible. But again, this one has, I mean, it's got a hardback book, which is absolutely wonderful. It's even better than the Crimes of the Future one, and that's saying something. So again, if you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you probably picked this up already, but I mean, it's a hardback book that would look good on any shelf, even if you weren't a film collector. Kurosawa's Ran in 4K, again another essential. I do believe Dreams is coming out in 4K. Batman Returns, probably my favourite Batman film, maybe with the Lego Batman. David Lynch on Dune in 4K. Again, if you're releasing Lynch on 4K, then I'm probably going to pick up Lynch on 4K. And then The Thing on 4K, so that does give me 4 editions of The Thing on 4K. The Predator trilogy, which all look way better than the Blu-ray. Even Predators actually is an upgrade, which compared to the last 2 Predator films, Predators actually now looks like a masterpiece. Well, maybe not a masterpiece, but more Carpenter, Prince of Darkness, and Escape from New York on 4K. I do need to pick up The Fog, just trying to see it and get it cheap. Then probably the only Argento that I'll pick up on 4K is Bird with Crystal Plumage, which is still my favourite one, but I'm just weird. Alligator in 4K, which looks really wonderful. Kind of had to pick this up. The Devil's Backbone on 4K, my favourite Del Toro film, and I think it's probably his best one. Just absolutely wonderful. Obviously Criterion have announced that they're releasing his Pinocchio in 4K, which I will be picking up because that's a wonderful film. Die Hard in 4K, again, kind of had to. Does look really good. Again, it's kind of cleaned up that kind of haze that it had. City of Lost Children 4K, and October the 9th, or yeah, maybe the 9th, maybe the 23rd, 22nd, Delicatessen's coming out, which I'm really excited about. But City of Lost Children is awesome, even though I prefer Delicatessen. The Universal Classic Monsters, again, the Blu-rays are jaw-droppingly good. I would say the 4Ks are a little better, but there's nothing wrong with the Blu-rays because they are stunning for films that were made quite a long time ago. Haven't got the second set, but this is Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Wolfman. And then finally, Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but really for Charles Dance, who's just superb in it. So that's my 4K collection, and that'll be it. Apart from the ones that I buy in the future, but that will probably be the last video unless I'm actually talking about the film that I've accidentally bought in 4K. As I said, Touch of Evil's coming out tomorrow, which I'll have pre-ordered. But again, I'm not gonna redo my entire collection in 4K. I'll probably just pick up the odd one, or if there's a deal on or something like that. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know what your favourite 4K is, or a 4K that you would recommend as far as sound and picture quality. And hopefully you'll join me again for more videos. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell